In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the most unreliable survival gun I've ever handled. My name is Murray, and you're watching 3BAR-D videos. Holy crap! God, did it go fully around? Here you go. There we go. Now we got audio. Alright, let's spit this out. Okay. So what we have here is the TNW ASR rifle. TNW is the United States-based manufacturer that produces this rifle, and the ASR stands for Aero Survival Rifle. What it is basically a semi-automatic blowback carbine that is a multi-caliber carbine, so you can buy different components for it and have it shoot different rounds like 10mm, 9mm, and even things like 22 long rifle. There's no intermediate cartridge sizes or larger than that, as far as I'm aware of, so it's all kind of handgun cartridges and some rimfire cartridges. Currently, at the time of this video, this rifle here in Canada does have a non-restricted status, this particular version that has the longer barrel. They do make a pistol version of this rifle, but and of course that will be a restricted firearm up here in Canada. I purchased this firearm from Wolverine Supplies way back when they were first brought into the country. I'm gonna guess like 5 years ago or so, and I paid a price of around $930 Canadian for it, I believe. And I see now at the time of this video, many years later, these rifles seem to be going for right around $800 to $850 Canadian here in Canada, which isn't bad. As far as variations go, you can buy this rifle in all sorts of different configurations. This particular one is the rifle version, so it has the 18 3/4 inch barrel on it, which gives it its non-restricted status here in Canada. They do produce a pistol version down in the States, and I'm not sure what the barrel length is on it, and I don't believe I've seen any up here in Canada, but they definitely produce them down in the States. Of course, that model would be a restricted model up here in Canada. This particular rifle is in the flat dark earth color, but TNW offers these rifles in a vast array of different colors. I've seen OD green ones, black ones, gray ones. They even do some wacky colors that are kind of like a flame pattern. And of course you can get this rifle in many different types of calibers. So this one here is the 9mm version, but I've seen a 10mm version out there. I presume there's a 40 Smith & Wesson version, and I'm pretty sure there's a 22 long rifle version. And I heard rumors that they're working on a 22 mag version as well. You could definitely check out TNW's website. It's a very well put together website, and on there you'll be able to see all the different configurations you can order your rifle in. Features on this firearm: it mostly takes AR-15 furniture, So by that I mean it uses, I believe out of the box it came with a commercial buffer tube. So of course out of the box it can take any commercial buttstock you can find out there for AR-15. And then it takes AR-15 pistol grips. However, as you can tell by the design here, just by appearance, it will not support a beaver tail pistol grip, I believe. On it right now I got a Magpul K-Zone, not K-Zone, K-Grip or whatever it's called. And this particular model is one of the early gen models, so it just comes with the simple CNC'd little barrel nut on the front end here. But I believe TNW has now developed a barrel nut that you can thread on that allows AR forends to bolt onto it. So if you get that accessory or your TNW rifle comes with it out of the box, you will be able to put various AR forends on your TNW ASR as well. So that's pretty cool. The rifle has a reciprocating charging handle only on the right side. So it's a very large knob on it, easy to grip onto. And it does have, there is a cutout on in the slot that it travels in to allow you to manually hold the bolt back on an empty mag, or just hold it back in general. There is an ambidextrous ejection port on this firearm. So, and you cannot block those off, there's no means to do that. So they are both open. It's open on both sides all the time. And you can disassemble the bolt. There's a lot of how-to videos on YouTube on how to do this, especially ones created by TNW Arms themselves. And basically you can swap the extractor to the opposite side on the bolt and make it eject out the left side if you wanted to. It has a simple push button safety that is located right above the trigger group area. Very easy to access with your index finger. The mag release is only located on the left side, and it's located just on the left side of the mag well. It's just a really large spring-loaded like push button mag release. Pretty simple stuff. On the top of the upper receiver, there is a large 1913 rail. I'm going to say it's like 9 inches long, 10 inches long. It's very long in length, and it is monolithic, so it is CNC'd right into the aluminum upper on this firearm. So that thing is not moving. It's a rock solid fixture to mount your optics to, or what other accessories you might want to do. There is the threaded holes and slots on the forend for 3 different 1913 rails. It's been so long since I bought this gun, I can't remember if it came with 3 rail sections or not. It definitely came with 1, and as you can see on this rifle, I do have the one bolted onto the bottom section of the forend. But yeah, it has the fixtures there, so you can do that if you decide you want to just run the rifle like this and not buy AR forend for it. And then probably the biggest feature on this firearm to me is the fact that the barrel is a quick spin-off barrel. So you literally just crank this nut on the forend here and the barrel just pulls right out of the front of the gun. Simple as that. You can literally take the barrel off this gun in like 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Super quick. Which leads us to the final feature of this firearm, and that is that it's multi-caliber. So I believe the upper is the part that is registered to you as a firearms owner. So that allows you to switch out the bolt group inside it, the barrel, and the lower to different calibers, and you don't need, here in Canada at least, I believe you don't need to do any registration or anything for those components. You basically just register the one piece to your name, and you can switch out your gun to like multiple calibers without having to do any paperwork for it, which is really cool. One other feature I forgot to mention there is this gun does have a little set screw located above the trigger here that you can crank in all the way, and it basically blocks the travel of the trigger. So I think the idea behind that is it's basically a child lock on this firearm. So, you know, if you have it tucked away behind the seat of a float plane or something, even if a kid gets a hold of it, somehow puts a loaded mag in it, unless they have an Allen key on them and they're smart enough to back that off, they aren't going to set the gun off accidentally. So this rifle, as you see it now, with an empty PMag inserted, weighs in at 7.36 pounds, and I see on the website that lists the stock ASRs is weighing in at 5.5 pounds. So I'm not sure if that's with a mag insert or not, but they're definitely a light gun. The minimum overall length of this firearm is around 32 inches with the buttstock fully collapsed in, and that's the rifle length, I believe. I measured the trigger pull on this particular firearm at 3.5 pounds, but I will note I did a trigger job on this gun when I received it because it was really gritty out of the box, so I polished a lot of the components on it, so that probably is a good reason why it's only 3.5 pounds at a break weight. If I had to take a guess, I would say the stock triggers are right around 5.5 pounds, just like your standard AR-15. I thought the build quality on this firearm right out of the box was excellent. The gun is pretty much entirely metal. The only plastic bits that were included with mine was the furniture and the magazine that came with it. The trigger group, the bolt, all the vital stuff seemed to be steel, and then the receiver itself is some grade of aluminum that has a very good anodized finish to it, so the color is anodized into aluminum, I believe, so it doesn't scratch or chip easy at all. The machine work on the ASR seems to be excellent. There is no sharp edges on these guns, but yet there's also no unsightly machine marks. And the fit and finish is great. Everything butts up nice and tight, and there isn't a lot of loose parts on the gun. Durability on the gun, just like the build quality, seems to be excellent. I've had this thing for like 5 years now. It's bounced around on snowmobiles, like on a single point sling on my lap, in like minus 30 below Celsius temperature, and nothing's broke on it. And I don't know, it hasn't really been beat around, but it's been used a lot outside for hunting purposes, toted through the bush, and it looks brand new. I could sell it as pretty much a brand new gun to this day, 5 years, 6 years later. I can't remember when I bought it exactly. Reliability. Now here's the real kicker with this firearm. Out of the box, and to this day, even with 1,000 rounds through it, tweaking it in various places, lubing it up, keeping it well maintained and clean, this gun is the most unreliable firearm I still own in my collection. I've had a few Turkish shotguns that are worse than this thing, but currently this is the most unreliable gun I own. And pretty much the unreliability all stems from either failures to feed or failures to eject. And lately, as of the 1,000 rounds and tweaking and stuff, it seems to be the failure to eject more than anything. And I'm not the only one. These Gen 1 ASRs, you'll see a lot of them on the internet where there's a lot of people just like me that complain about its reliability. And some of them are so bad to the point that people are wanting to return them or basically get their money back because it's almost dysfunctional. As far as more details into the malfunctions, the failure to eject is pretty simple. Basically, you'll shoot the gun and then click, and you'll look forward and you'll see that a casing didn't clear the chamber in time, and the bolt has come forward, picking up a new round and sandwiched the casing in amongst that. So that's a very typical failure to eject with this gun. But yeah, the bolt will travel all the way to the back, far enough to pick up a new round and cock the trigger and everything. But that casing just doesn't clear the chamber very reliably. It ricochets around inside the ejection port, I guess, and stays in there, and the bolt closes on it. And then the really strange thing that this gun does have is failures to feed, and that seems to all be regarding the bullet or the casing hooking on the feed lip of the firearm. And it's very strange because it doesn't seem to be mag specific. I have tried a lot of different mags in this gun. Glock, genuine Glock mags, P mags, GTS mags, the KCI mag that came with it from the factory. All of them will do this at some point, and when it happens it's very strange because you'll insert a mag, drop the bolt, and click. It doesn't close fully. It goes halfway shut, and you can see the bullet is caught on the feed ramp. And what you'll do is simply clear it by pulling the action back and dumping the round out on the ground. And then you'll let the bolt go flying forward again, and they'll do it for every single round in that magazine until the mag is empty. And it's very strange. But yeah, if you pull that mag out of the gun and put it in a different mag, all of a sudden you'll drop the bolt and click it. It goes into full battery and the gun shoots fine. But then, a week later you might use that mag that worked fine, and then it does this. It does the failures to feed. It's not like you can just clear the jam and then drop the bolt and it starts working again. Every time it does this, the entire mag is foobarred somehow. So it's very strange. I've never figured out why it does that. But it's more and more rare in occurrence the more rounds I've fired through this gun. And what seems to be the remaining problem with it is the failures to eject. I've contacted TNW Arms about it, and they're really good about getting back to me, but I've had this gun for so long and I didn't really get on top of these malfunctions because I thought it was a break-in period for the longest time. And then by the time I reached 1,000 rounds and decided, no, this gun's just faulty, it's not a break-in period, by that point it was like 4 years old. So I contact TNW Arms and they already have a Gen 2 out, and they're basically telling me, sorry man, like your gun's so old, we can't do anything for you, which really pissed me off. The Gen 2s, you will notice have a beveled ejection port on them. My guess that was TNW's attempt to try and make the casings clear the chamber, the chamber better before the bolt comes flying forward to improve the failure to eject situation. And I know a buddy who bought a Gen 2 and he had the same issues as me, to the point that he sold that gun. He doesn't own it anymore, I believe, just because it was so unreliable. So the Gen 2s don't seem to be really any better than the Gen 1s in that regard. I have come across people that own the Gen 1s and the Gen 2s, and they swear by their gun just working 100%. But I think if you go online, you'll notice there's a hell of a lot of people that don't have their guns working 100%, and they're very pissed about it. Even the gun they supplied to Hickok 45, if you watch his video on the ASR, you'll see the very things that I'm talking about with that ASR in his video. So that kind of speaks truth to how serious this problem is. It's not just a few people. Oh, there's a hoop. I have to go through the hoop. So I took the gun out to the range today and did a little accuracy test with it. For this test I shot a distance of only 50 meters because I only have a 1x optical zoom sight on this gun at this time. And I shot fully supported off my K-zone rest. I shot two different ammo types. One was Wasp Munitions 124 grain jacketed hollow points, and the other type was CCI brass, laser brass, 124 grain full metal jackets. I shot 5-shot groups, and the weather conditions were pretty good. It was really hot out, probably like 30+ degrees Celsius out. The sun was really intense, so the barrel did warm up pretty quick between groupings. And there was a little bit of a light breeze, so there was some environmental effects, but nothing too extreme. And of all the groups I shot, it seems like the gun, it's pretty evident that the gun is right around a 4 to 5 MOA shooter with optimal ammo. And that's also equating for a little bit of shooter error on my part, because I don't claim to be a super precise shooter. I always like to, whatever I get on paper, I like to reduce it just by a little bit to represent like a perfect shooter out there, somebody who's better than me. And then one thing I did do before the end of that shooting session is I did shoot a group on paper, and then I removed the barrel from the receiver and I reinserted it and shot another group to see if there would be any noticeable change in impact from removing the barrel, and the gun seemed to shoot exactly where it shot the first time after removing the barrel. So it seems like removing the barrel in the gun does not, it returns to zero very reliably. So that's good to see. Overall, I would say I'm pretty satisfied with the accuracy. It seems to be pretty much what one could expect for a pistol caliber carbine. It's not like the best, but it's pretty much the norm. As far as I'm concerned, the shootability of this firearm is really good as well. It really is to me the perfect blend of kind of like a survival rifle configuration with yet something that is full size and comfortable to actually shoulder for extended amounts of time and plink with. It's very well balanced. Of course, the recoil impulse is quite nice too, because it's just a pistol caliber carbine. and because you got the AR furniture, you get the AR ergonomics, the optic could sit on the rail, and it's pretty much the same height over bore as an AR-15. So most of your optics you come across that have like an AR riser mount on, well, if you bolt them to that rail, it'll give you the perfect cheek weld right off the bat. So ergonomics on it are very plain Jane, which, you know, it depends on your roll of use for this gun. The mag release is easy to find, it works great, the mags drop free from it every time, and the safety is easy to use. It's not very loud, so if you're hunting, it's a very modest low click. It's not like some, you know, really loud tactical click that might scare your game. The modifications one can do to these firearms is actually pretty impressive for what it is as well, mainly due to all the great support from TNW Arms and the products they make and sell for these guns on their website. And believe it or not, they do ship a lot of their stuff up to Canada, which is a huge bonus. You know, a lot of the guns you buy here in Canada, you'll go to the American website and, you know, there's no shipping to Canada. But as far as I'm aware, at the time of this video, TNW Arms will still ship a lot of their accessories up to you here in Canada, which is nice. Between the AR-15 furniture you can put on it that is compatible, and the forends with the particular barrel nut that I was mentioning earlier, you know, you got all the customization there. Then you got like the rails up front, of course, so you can put different accessories bolted to that, different optics, of course. And then they do sell some parts too, like you can buy a match trigger for these guns if you want. Various little ergonomic improvements here and there. So for what it is, being a niche gun that isn't highly adopted yet, there is quite a bit you can do with them, kind of make it your own. So that's impressive as well. Which brings us to support. Like I said, it's excellent that TNW, you can contact them and they'll get back to you right away. They're good when it comes to communication. Their website is easy to navigate and great as well, like laid out, and it ships to Canada, huge bonus. Wolverine Supplies here in Canada, who has a really good rep for being a great gun store, I believe is the dealer for these firearms still in Canada, so they are also a great place to work with. They're the place I bought this gun from, even though I never took them up on any warranty issues with this, and I should have. The only complaint I have regarding support is if you happen to have one of these guns and it's unreliable and it's an old one, TNW Arms basically told me tough luck, like sucks to be you, which does piss me off. That is a big minus to their support, but you know, I can't be biased in my reviews. I gotta suggest that if you have one of these that functions fine, you'll probably love the support that TNW suggests. And TNW was okay in suggesting, like they did give me some pointers, like make sure you got your buffer tube cranked to a certain distance so it doesn't, the charging handle doesn't hit the rear, and they gave me some real basic problem solving things to look into that I could have just found online too if I just did my research. But ultimately my gun is still unreliable and they won't do anything for me regarding that, so it is what it is. The disassembly on the ASR is extremely easy. After proving that the firearm is unloaded and safe, the first thing I like to do is charge the action. The reason for this is because it cocks the hammer to the rear, and I find for most firearms doing that often aids in taking out the internals on the firearm. So it's something I usually do for like 80% of the guns I come across. So the next step to disassembling the ASR is to take out these two lower receiver pins. These can be taken out either by pushing them with your fingertip or by using something pokey. It all depends on how tight you've got these pins installed on your lower receiver, which we'll get into in just a second. There's a skinny side to them and a wide side. They can only be pushed out the one way, and the direction in which you push them out totally depends on which way you put them in last time you put the gun together. So on my particular rifle right now, they need to be pushed from the left side of the gun. So here they are, the skinny side. You just give them a little tap. And they are not captured. So when you push them out, they will fall out of the gun. So make sure you can keep track of them. There you go. So now that those have been removed, you can shimmy the lower receiver right off this gun. It's going to meet a little resistance at the rear just because there is a pin at the back of the receiver here that kind of meshes with the buffer tube. So you just have to use some careful force. There we go. It's way more awkward to do that when you're filming it than it is in normal practice when you're actually in the field. So there you go, you can see there's the lower receiver. The reason why you have to take this out first is because this extractor right here protrudes up inside and inside kind of the bolt carrier group here. So if you try to take out the bolt carrier group before you take the lower out, this will hit and it won't allow this to come out, I believe. So now you've taken the lower receiver out, you can start to take the barrel out. So you just back off the barrel nut here, which you can tell by the sound is a kind of a ratcheting nut, or it has like a kind of a locking thing built into it. You're going to back this off just enough that you can line up the charging handle here with a hole in the upper receiver. So you can see it just pulls right out once you get in the right position. And from that point, you can literally just spin this nut the rest of the way out, and the barrel will come out. After that, the main bolt carrier group will just slide right out of the gun. Super easy. You can see on these, it may not show up in the video because of the focus I got right now, but you can see on these TNW firearms, the ASR, all these main components that are very dependent on the caliber of the gun have the caliber conveniently stamped on them. So this is the 9, as you can tell by the stamping on the face of the bolt here. And here's the ambidextrous charging or extractor claw slots in the bolt, so you can swap this to this side and make it eject out the left side of the gun if you wanted. In the top of the receiver, there in the rails, there is a cap screw here, as well as underneath the optic. Oh, not quite, right here. Kind of underneath the optic. Anyways, those can be adjusted depth-wise, and what they do is the bottom of them protrudes into the action, and they run along inside this slot. They basically act as a guide for to keep the action nice and, I don't know, running true. And if you crank one of these in too far, what will happen is you'll find that this won't pull out, or it will be binding on that. Same with the one in the rear. The one in the rear needs to be cranked in far enough that it isn't binding on this, but yet I believe it is what keeps your buffer tube system contained in the gun. So you can see it slides forward just far enough that it hits that bolt. If you wanted to take that out and clean it, you can either take the buffer tube off, or you can back that out, and the spring and other internals of the buffer system will continue to come out the front of the gun, I believe. Another thing worth noting is there are these special machined bolts on the bottom of the lower here. These can be cranked in and out, and what they do is they interlock with those lower receiver pins that you took out. So you can see how the pin kind of rubs up against them, and that's what basically TNW developed this, so you can adjust the tension of your upper and lower. So if you don't want it loose and rattling, you can crank these in a little ways, and then try pushing the pins in, and basically you can take up the slack in your upper and lower by adjusting these. It's a really cool idea, but there is a con to it, which I'll explain later. And yeah, that's pretty much a basic disassembly on the ASR. You can see that it is a blowback firearm, so how it functions is basically the recoil of the round going off just pushes this whole assembly back against a buffer tube located in the buffer here, or back against the buffer in the buffer tube here, and then that spring in the buffer tube basically pushes the action forward, allowing it to pick up a new round. So just very simple design with no last round hold open device installed. So this gun is like an AK, it basically does not hold open on the last round. So things I like about this gun, I personally think it's a very affordable gun. At the $800 Canadian price tag mark, there really isn't too many other options on the Canadian gun market as far as non-restricted pistol caliber carbines go that's cheaper than this. There are a few, but you gotta keep in mind, unlike this gun's competition, or some of its competition, for that price tag you are getting a 100% all-metal firearm, and it has a real excellent build quality about it, like I mentioned earlier, so it kind of stands out ahead of its competitors in that sense. It is very durable, like I mentioned earlier as well. Definitely the number one thing I like about this gun is how shootable it is. Just like I said earlier, it's pretty much, in my opinion, the perfect blend of what a pistol caliber carbine should be. It's got that kind of light, nimble, pointable characteristic about it, low profile, well balanced, all that jazz, but yet it brings the comforts you would expect from a full-size rifle by taking the AR furniture and just having the right weight distribution. So it makes for a really shootable gun, but yet it still feels like a pistol caliber carbine. Another thing I like about it is I personally think they're a very beautiful gun as far as these types of guns go, like the pistol caliber carbines. I really love the finish and the colors that they gave these guns, and a lot of the aesthetic design stuff they've put into the receivers on these guns. Like, you'll notice there's a lot of real healthy radiuses in all the corners on these things. It's almost like a 1950s car. Like, everything's got real curved edges to it, and it makes for a comfortable thing to hold and look at. I like that it takes Glock magazines, because of course Glock magazines are readily available here in Canada and down the States, of course. And because they are a pistol magazine designed for a pistol, you are able to legally hold 10 rounds of them here in Canada and put them in your rifle. So it allows you to basically legally fire 10 rounds from this gun, unlike some other pistol caliber carbines on the market that might only allow 5. So that's an advantage. I do like that their website ships to Canada. That is a huge advantage that is quite underrated in my opinion. Like, just the idea that if something were to break on this gun tomorrow, I don't have to find the dealer here in Canada and then see if they have it in stock, and if they don't, I don't have to wait for them to ship in that part for me. If, say, the trigger snaps off on this thing for some reason, I can go on TNW's website, chances are they have it in stock, and they'll ship it up to Canada for me, no problem. So that's real convenient. Probably the second most thing I like about this gun is the quick detach barrel. I'm not normally a guy who's a big fan of a folding stock gun. I know a lot of people like them with the idea that you can fold the gun in half basically, but in my opinion I've never liked that, because when you fold the gun in half with a folding stock it becomes really bulky width-wise. So I really do love the detachable barrel in this setup, because that basically allows you to fold the gun in half, but it's all of a sudden 2 pieces. It doesn't become twice as wide. So you'll see me quite often, I'll be hunting, or when I'm transporting this gun, I'll take the barrel right out of it, because I know it returns to 0, and I'll slip it into a backpack and lock it up, or put it underneath the seat of the truck. Like, there's a lot of spaces you can put this thing because of that. I like how it has easy disassembly. And then the final thing I like about this gun is it is generally pretty accurate. Alright, so now for things I dislike about this gun. First thing is the lower pins need more travel on them. So in the disassembly video you saw me explain how there's these little pins in the bottom of the upper receiver that could be cranked in and out to adjust the tension of the fit between the lower and upper. Right now I got those cranked all the way in, like tight to the bottom of the bottom of the upper, to make this fit so it isn't loose, and there's no more travel on them. So whenever this wears out or whatever, the lower is going to become loose again, and I'm not going to be able to do anything about it because I can't crank the things in more. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more travel room there, so one can make it tighter and tighter over time. Just a minor little design defect. On an overall, good idea. Another thing that I've heard lots of people complain about online, and it has been an issue for me too, until I decided to finally do something about it, and that is the barrel nut works loose on these guns slowly as you fire them. So if you were to just take this gun out to the range and shoot like 50 rounds through it, you'd notice after that 50 rounds you'd reach up and out of the box this gun, the barrel nut will have turned like a quarter turn or so. So never enough to actually, I've never experienced it doing enough to actually put any play in the barrel, but it's one of those things where this is what holds your barrel onto the gun and it's loose now. So you'll see me quite often after I shoot it, it's just become a habit, I'll just reach up and give it a little torque, make sure it's tight still. They do make easily accessible on the front of the rail here, the little set screw that you can crank in that basically pushes the tension on the, it puts more tension on the ball detent that holds, kind of creates the ratcheting motion on the barrel nut here that holds it in place. Basically you can tighten that set screw more and more, so that becomes a lot stiffer, and therefore, you know, the barrel nut might not back off now. So I did finally get around to tightening that, and it's a lot harder to crank unloose and tighten back up again. And I haven't noticed it back off since, but I haven't exactly pumped a whole bunch of rounds through this gun without touching that and seeing if it does work loose. So that might be an issue that's fixed or might not be fixed. I don't know yet. Another thing I don't like about this gun is it has a very loose, sloppy mag well on it. So you'll notice pretty much all the mags, Glock mags out there, have a lot of play to them. And I've kind of, when I first started having the failure to feed issues with this gun, I thought it might be because of that these mags, you know, the feed angle is just out of whack because these mags are so loose. So I actually took the original mag that came with this gun, the plastic KCI mag, and I actually wrapped electrical tape around it to make it snug in the mag well, and then I started using it and it still was having failure to feed issues. So I kind of eliminated this issue as being a potential cause for the unreliability, but it bothers me that it's so loose. I don't really see a reason for it to be that loose. But yeah, I don't think it has a negative impact on the gun. I don't like how the gun has an inverted bolt hold open on it. So you'll notice when you rack the bolt to the back, there's that little slot in the top of the receiver that you can cock the handle up into to hold the bolt back. What I've noticed is if you bump the rifle real aggressively on the bottom, you can make that bolt drop out of that slot and chamber around, which is, I don't know, I would have rather had it drop down like a Just Right carbine does. So that's just my personal preference. I also don't like that the gun has no last round bolt hold open, so even though Glock mags do have the follower for it sometimes, this gun does not. It does not have a last round hold open, and many pistol caliber carbines are like that, but I certainly would appreciate it if they did. Definitely the number one thing I dislike about this gun is the fact that it's completely unreliable. I already elaborated on that, so I'm not going to go into any more detail. And then finally, this is something that doesn't really bother me, but I can totally see it being an issue for somebody who's taking advantage of the marketing that this gun is, being a survival gun. This survival gun doesn't have any iron sights built into it. So a lot of people would say, well, you know, as a survival gun, what happens if my optic dies or gets busted? You know, a survival gun should have iron sights on it, and this gun does not. Alright, so now it's time to give this rifle a 3-bar D score. This is going off my little scoreboard here. I try to be consistent with this for all the guns I review, so that way you got a good comparison. Right off the bat, because it's non-restricted, it gets 30 points. Accuracy wise, it's almost as accurate as the Just Right carbine, which I kind of took to be about as accurate as pistol caliber carbines get. So I gave it a 19. Reliability, I pounded this gun hard because I have, you know, 20 out of 20 if it was pretty much 100% reliable. And then I could give out partial scores for things that have quirky little reliability issues, like say it doesn't like hollow points, or it doesn't like a particular magazine or something like that. Then I'll deduct a little bit off that. But because this thing literally doesn't function because it's designed, not because of third-party things, I gave it a 1. 1 out of 20 for reliability. Durability, I gave it 20 out of 20 because it hasn't broke. It's great. Affordability, I gave it a 19 out of 20 because it's not quite the cheapest option on the Canadian market right now. There is still that Chiappa M1 that is like considerably cheaper. Then for ergonomics, if it had full-on AR-15 ergonomics, so last round hold open, a button to release it, easy to access mag release and all that jazz, I'd give it a 20/20. But this gun, you know, doesn't have a lot of that, so I give it a 17 out of 20. Handling wise, because it shoots so nice for what it is, it's one of the nicest pistol caliber carbines I have to shoot. I gave it a 20 out of 20 for handling. Support, even though TNW Arms totally abandoned me with my reliability issues, which is a big downer, they still do offer like the shipping and good support and communication that way. So I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt and I gave them 8 out of 10 for support. Accessories, you can pretty much accessorize everything you want on this within reason. So I gave it a 10 out of 10. It's pretty much as good as any pistol caliber carbine is going to be. Build quality gets a 10 out of 10. Disassembly gets a 10 out of 10 because you don't need any special tools to take it apart. You just push out 2 pins, crank out the barrel, voila. And then design problems, I gave it only a 6 out of 10. So if this gun had 0 design problems, it'd get a 10 out of 10. But because the barrel nut gets loose, that bumped it down. The sloppy mag well and the upper and lower play issue with not being able to tighten those bolts too much more, that doctored it a little bit. And then one issue I forgot to mention and reasons I dislike about this gun, and it's a big one, is this gun will not support some Glock magazines. And I learned that the hard way. If you have one of those Glock magazines that has the little pyramid kind of bump on its follower that sticks up, if you put that in this gun and you let the bolt fly forward on an empty mag, that bolt will hit the follower and bust it right out of the magazine. And that is a pain in the ass follower to find. I had to contact Glock in Austria, and then they relayed me to the rep here in Canada, who I couldn't find. They relayed me to him, and then he was able to send me a follower piece through the mail. I don't think I paid money for it either, so that was convenient, but it was a pain in the ass. It totally wrote off a $60 mag, right? So to get around this, you can file or Dremel away that pyramid nub just a little bit, and that will make the mag insert into the gun and the bolt will travel over it and not bust the follower. But that involves you modifying the genuine $70, $60 Glock mag, right, to make it fit your gun. There are certain Glock mags out there that don't have that, but the one I was using did. And then most other pistol mags, like this P mag I got in the gun right now, they don't have that type of follower, so they just work flawlessly, no issues. 6 out of 10, which brings the score to 85%. So that's not too bad, considering the major hit it took reliability-wise. So in conclusion, I'd have to say this has been one of the most awkward rifle reviews I've had to do so far, just because this rifle comes so close to perfection, but yet it's shown me that reliability is a real killer, because despite it checking off pretty much all the boxes I look for in a pistol caliber carbine, it's just, to this day, it's still a super unreliable gun, and that pretty much kills its functionality to me and makes it a gun that I actually would not recommend to somebody. So despite it getting 85% using the 3BAR-D scoreboard here, I would actually give it a personal score of more like 40% because of its reliability. So that's real bad. And unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to have to be until, you know, a company like TNW Arms starts resolving these guns, or can release a model that is 100% guaranteed to be like reliable and have no issues. Like, have nobody like me come up out of the blue and release a review about it not being reliable, right? But as it stands, that's pretty much the way it's going to have to be, and I hope you found this review helpful, and until next time, take care.